I've been noticing this with me lately when I text. Just because somebody asks a question doesn't mean you have to answer it.
Yeah, no, certainly not immediately.
But we get that urgency. Oh, I gotta get back to them on that. And sometimes I think this is what trips up with women. They're not. It's a rhetorical question in a sense. When the woman is like, um, "Why didn't you take the garbage out? You know garbage is going to happen tomorrow." That's not an open invitation to let her know why.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And that is it's just we're trained from an early age though, aren't we? To be spontaneous and just react to things as they appear.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it might just be checking it off the list because we've all got so many things to do. As soon as we get another thing to do, we just want to deal with it so it's not lingering and causing us discomfort.
But what it creates, and we don't realize it, is it feels like we're being defensive. It feels like we're being logical instead of just connecting with what it feels like for her right now to be a woman with the garbage still in the kitchen. That's what she's trying to express. She's trying to let you know what it's like to be a woman with trash still in the kitchen. And we're
Mm.
hearing, oh, but she asked why I didn't bring it out. And we nailed all 8 points. So how could she still feel like this? And that's the disconnection. That's where the woman feels like he doesn't get me. And that's where especially when a relationship is dissolving and she's starting to voice just how misunderstood she's been, and we're standing there scratching our heads. It was those little moments like that we were doing it and didn't know.
Yeah, true. Absolutely. And I think at the cause of that is empathy, isn't it? Because as soon as you can actually step out of yourself for a little bit and approach her with high regard, then you see things like that very differently. I'm talking to a client at the moment and he read what was it? What Women Want When They Test Men.
Mm.
And he's going through he said, look, the examples he gave of tests were very argumentative and just like not they weren't even tests as far as I was understanding them. They were just ultimatums. If you hug that woman, we're done. If she's going to get a job at your office, if you hire her, we're finished. He immediately took them as attacks. So he immediately defended and he just stamped his feet and said, well, no, if you're going to be like that, then we're done. Where if you hold her in high regard and assume the best of her, you can actually see where her little insecure, screaming little girl is crying out for help. She's crying out for attention, isn't she?
And we missed the cue. We don't see it as a
Yeah.
little girl crying for help. We see it as a complaint, an objection to how we are being, a
Yeah.
list that apparently we didn't meet the standard on, and now she's not okay. Like, we have to frame it like that in our own minds and see her as like at age 5, and that she just needs something right now to be okay. And she's seeking it from you through the form of, why didn't you bring the trash out?
Yeah, that's true. And it is interesting because our default is to become self-absorbed and just focus on, and get defensive instead of openly seeing it from her perspective and thinking, well, what is she actually saying? Because I mean, you and I both know that most of the time what women say isn't what they're saying. There's always a subtext underneath the words, right? There's feelings behind the words that make them say it. And if you can get to what that feeling is, it's going to be a much more productive experience. It's going to be a much more productive conversation. It doesn't have to be an altercation or an adversarial position where you're just fighting. A woman is saying something, she's upset about something. It's not a personal attack. You don't need to take it personally. The irony is, the more you do this work, the more you realize that, well, even if she says it's you, it's still not you. It can't be. It's not how feelings work.
The underlying issue that's easy to miss, that us guys have to wake up to, is the reason we're feeling that burning desire to justify ourselves, explain it clearly so she doesn't misunderstand our intention, answer all of her questions as she's asking them, is that need, that insecurity, that desperation to get something from her, the approval, maybe the avoidance of a conflict. Like, there's something in us that we're trying to meet a need of, and we're doing it by averting those vulnerable places, by being able
Yeah.
to be empathetic to her, by being able to see her in a higher regard as just a little girl that's just asking for help, and she, because of her emotions being hard right now. And if
Yeah.
our own shit is boiling up in us, that's what she's pricking at. And that's where we're coming from. So the answer isn't to get better at playing the game and being able to, interact with her in a way that leads her out of there because we have a good plan. It's because we've dealt with the thing she was poking. And that's not a pain point anymore. So even when the question rolls through by text or in face, suddenly it doesn't feel like an attack, like maybe it used to feel like an attack.
Yeah. Well, what is the difference for you between an attack and simply a statement? It's how you interpret it, isn't it? It's how it feels inside you.
Yep.
So if you can learn to recognize the trigger without actually being triggered, all of a sudden you get to decide how you want to behave. Right? Go from reaction to response. Very different way of handling.
And that's why when we're working with men, we retrain our brains to have different definitions for different things. What used to feel like, oh, that's an attack, we rewire to, oh, that's an opportunity. What used to feel like insecurity or fear, we now reframe as, no, the definition for that is the ability of something is coming towards us that is allowing something new to happen that could not have happened. So that's what we are meaning when we are talking about different mindsets, is because our old definition of feelings and our old definition of what it means when people do stuff, we're challenging that and coming up with new terms and we can frame them as if it's like a window opening, and we get to step through the window now, or before we saw it as a missile.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're trying to dodge it. And the interesting point that brings up is every guy is going to throw at us the argument, but I've been doing it. I've learned this way. I don't know any other way. I was taught how to react this way. I've been doing this for 30 years, 40 years. Well, it doesn't matter, does it? In the end, you can literally choose to behave differently in a split second. You're still going to have the urges to do that shit. You're still going to have the habit's still going to be there, right? But if you can recognize what your triggers are and make decisions about how you behave and how you act, it doesn't matter if you've been doing it 30, 50 years. You can change it in the space of a single decision. But you just have to be aware and conscious of it and make a choice on how you want to move forward and behave. And our values.
We got right now. That's all we got. Yesterday doesn't even matter anymore. It's long in the past.
Yep, absolutely.